This is your Chargers linebacker, Daiyan, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Daiyan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Apologies for being a few minutes late, but as it normally is around this time of the year, you get holiday traffic coming home from work. So apologies for the minor delay. But Dan Wolkenstein and I obviously wanted to get together to do a live show to preview this pivotal Thursday night matchup between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Denver Broncos. Lots of playoff implications go hand in hand with this game for both teams coming in. A lot to talk about. Dan, I think we tried our best yesterday to exercise the demons, to get the bad taste out of the mouth of the game that was, or at least in the Chargers case, was not a game at all for them against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But we're past that. It's Wednesday night. Thursday is on the horizon.
Are we? Are we past that?
You got to flush it. You have to flush it. It's all you got a chance to do. We'll see what ends up happening Thursday night, but you got to flush it in order to go in to get ready to contend with this Denver Broncos team that is going to be much, much better than it was the first time that you ended up playing them earlier in the season.
Whew. Yeah, there's some pressure on this one. We'll see if Diamonds or Cole come out of this one. Chargers versus the Broncos Thursday night, primetime, 5:15. Chargers fans, show out, show up. Let's support this team. Storylines galore in this one, but we'll get into all of them. We have some voicemails left over. So when you say we're on to Denver, I'm not sure if we are. Have we flushed it? I don't know if we have. So we'll get to those.
Honestly, I forgot that we had those voicemails left over. So that should be entertaining. If you happen to catch the show from yesterday when we played the grip of those voicemails, you can understand why people were in their feelings.
Yeah, a little bit. Folks in the chat, you know the drill. Give us a comment, thoughts, questions. We'll do our best to kind of put those in the discussion as we go in, try to weave them in and out as much as we can. Question for you to start this off. What are you expecting from this Chargers team as a response? What is the response that you are expecting from this Chargers team? Let us know in the comments. We'll respond to you. But
God, I thought you were asking me. Honestly,
look,
I didn't have an answer.
I don't know if we have an answer. We know there's one that is required. We do know that a response is required. And you heard some less than minced words from the leaders of this team, from Derwin, from Khalil, from Justin, from Jim and company. This is as close to a must-win game, according to them and according to Jake, as you will find from a playoff seeding, morale, season perspective. Response is required. Before we get to all of that, Jake, let's pay the bills. Talk about our friends over at BetOnline.
Want to remind everybody that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Hit on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance at weekly prizes and have up to a share of $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That's betonline.ag to get in on the action. BetOnline. The game starts here.
All right. First question, which aligns quite well to one of the top storylines that we have for this game. Young Wes, what is this team's identity? Felt like we had an identity with our defense, but seems like we lost it. We can't run the ball. We can't pass. We are physical against good teams, and we get bullied. Jake, this is kind of a continuation of last night's discussion.
Yep.
But who or what is this offense? Is probably my biggest question and the biggest statement into the lack of identity through 14 games. I don't know. I think I know what they want to be. We think that they want to be this ground and pound, physical, balanced, play action team. They're not. We think that they want to churn the clock, time of possession, keep Herbert healthy, they're not. So I don't know. So the big question for me is, for you, Greg Roman, like, this is a big moment for you in your early Chargers career. Do I think he's on the hot seat? I don't know. But going up against a Broncos offense that isn't great, better than the Chargers, but isn't great, like, your offense has to show up a little bit here. I hope. And if your offense under Greg Roman isn't executed on the ground, isn't churning the clock, isn't keeping your quarterback healthy, then what is Greg Roman here for? I'm genuinely asking that question. What is Greg Roman's responsibility and purpose on this team? I thought that's what it was. And I'm not being a jerk here. Like, I'm genuinely curious. Like, what is the end game? What are the goals for this offense? Because it hasn't looked good. Glimpses, maybe. But, man, you're on primetime against a playoff team. There's a lot of eyes that can be on you from a good perspective or a bad one. Greg Roman, what are we?
I don't know either, Dan. Honestly, you look at this last month offensively, it's just been such a struggle for this team. And all year, you can't put 4 quarters of offensive football together for one reason or another. And then certain days you've been able to overcome that, given the fact of how your defense has played for a majority of the season. When your defense has days like it did this past Sunday against Tampa Bay, your offensive deficiencies can't withstand that. You saw it a little bit in Cincinnati. You saw it definitely in the Baltimore game. Thankfully, you're able to overcome it against the game in Atlanta, where your offense just really wasn't there ever, and your defense had to do all the scoring for you and your special teams. But this is a trend that has been going on all season. And you mentioned, okay, what's this team identity? It started off hot out of the chute, power run, J.K. Dobbins. You saw that through the first 2 weeks against the Raiders and the Panthers. They lose the next 2 after Herbert gets injured. Obviously, that affects a lot of what this team can do offensively in terms of his mobility and pushing the ball downfield. And after those 2 losses, and you got a chance to take the bye, get healthy, come back off of it, I actually liked some of the retooling in the offense that Greg Roman did at that point in time. Now, granted, that was with a healthier Justin Herbert, but I liked how they started getting Ladd McConkey involved in the offense a lot more. I started liking the utilization of Quentin Johnston a lot more. I think now with a little bit of the emergence of Stone Smart over the next 2 weeks, I think that's a big opportunity for him and what they can do with this downfield passing attack, given that you're still not going to be without Will Dissly for this game. But in terms of running the football, Dan, even if you wanted to run the football, I just don't know how successful you could be, because it hasn't been there since J.K. Dobbins has been out. And even at times when J.K. was in this lineup, it still wasn't the best. And it's strictly because of this interior of your offensive line just not being able to open up holes. And even if they are closing way too fast before anybody could even get through them. I've said it numerous times on this show. There's a reason why you see the most productive runs, whether it's J.K., Edwards, whoever it is, run to the left side, because that's Rashawn Slater's side. And that makes sense because Bradley Bozeman and Trey Pipkins, to single them out, have just not been that good in terms of run blocking or pass blocking for that matter. And when you do that and your running game can't be successful, you're prone to putting yourself in 3rd and long situations, which at that point in time, the defense is going to pin their ears back, especially now given the fact that they know that Justin Herbert is limited for what he can do in his mobility. And they're going to come after you. And that's, I think, the blueprint since the Baltimore game in terms of what offenses started to do against the Chargers. Since that Baltimore game, they have figured out a point of attack where they can run it down the Chargers' throat and how they can attack the Chargers offensively from a defensive perspective. And you've seen that over the last month or so, and it really came to a head this past Sunday. How do you respond?
Response is required. And we'll get to some more of this, Jake. Let's get to the voicemail. Let's start these things off. 323-902-7586 is the number to the Chargers Unleashed voicemail. Some live reactions here. Here's the next one that is a leftover from last week's game against the Bucs. Kind of a dud. Let's see what they say.
Oh, I got an instant reaction for you. We suck again. Man, that was some lackluster play, if I say so myself. I mean, come on. Offensive line can't do anything. Can't get the run game going. So what? Can you imagine what it looks like with Herbert having a run game? No, because we've never seen it. And then, figuring out that, once you shut down Ladd, you get these guys that kind of start scheming. Nobody knows what to do. Herbert just sitting there. Nobody's getting open. Desperately need number one wide receiver, to pair with Ladd. Get a nice little tight end. And then, man, the defense today. Well, probably my 30 seconds, but, fellas need to get this taken care of.
Like we said, response required. You have to think that they have to just flush that game. But there is a theme, and it's not a good one, if we're being honest, for the offense. We'll get to the defense here in a little bit. I think the defense deserves some slack here because they have been balling. But there's a theme, and it's not like they're going up against a chump defense this week to where they can kind of help, lick their wounds. Like, don't look now. Just for context, Chargers defensive line, Tuli Tupelotu, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. Hell, I'll throw in Puna Ford in there if you want. Quarterback hits 14, 13, 10, and 9. Okay, that's pretty good. Again, number one scoring defense. This Broncos front, Jake, is absolutely insane.
Yep.
Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, and John Franklin Myers, Jake. 29 quarterback hits, 20 quarterback hits, 16 quarterback hits, and 14 quarterback hits. That's 49, 59, 65, 79 quarterback hits between those four players. What?
Yep.
What? Those four players at 79 quarterback hits have almost as much as the entire Chargers team combined. 84 total quarterback hits for the Chargers, 79 for those four guys alone. So if you think that, okay, we made it past the Bucs. No, this is worse. This is worse. This is like DEFCON 3 for this interior defense offensive line for this Chargers team, and Greg Roman, and a hobbled Justin Herbert. You hope that you have reinforcements with Hayden Hurst. I don't know what our expectations are for that. But the overarching question is, what is this offense? And I guarantee you, maybe not literally, but Jim Harbaugh is asking the question. Greg Roman's probably trying to figure it out. You would think that offensive brain trust and coaching staff would be there to help him out. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and some of it is roster. I get it. There's a comment in here, Jake, asking about, let me get to it, Stephen Rutledge. Did you guys see the Kurt Warner analysis of our inept offense? Tailor out concepts.
I did. I actually saw this after we got done recording the show from yesterday, that we were talking about this very same thing. If you haven't seen the video, Kurt does a great job of going through about 3 or 4 different plays throughout the game in terms of how the Chargers, and more specifically Greg Roman, are scheming up downfield passing concepts for Herbert. And literally when you get to the end after the play is almost over, he's highlighting where the offensive line is, where the weapons are, and where Herbert has to throw the ball, which is seemingly nowhere. He has to be perfect in any throw that he was to make in any of these situations.
It's like Minesweeper. Have you played that game back in the day where you're trying to figure out where the smallest margin is, where you can find out where the solution to this game is? If you boom, boom, bam, there's a mine. Bam, there's a mine. This, it is so infuriating to watch, Jake, because you and I talked about it yesterday. They got to make this easier for Justin Herbert. And they are not making it easy. He's having to play like a freaking stud just to keep them in games in the times he's able to pass it. Otherwise, he's absolutely getting cooked. No thanks to the offensive line or blocking in general or concepts by Greg Roman and company. I can't even... You can say it's roster, I guess, but this Chargers brass chose this. They knew this. And you talk about tip of the spear for the offense is the offensive line. The tip of the spear is not good currently. If we're talking offensive line, guard, center, guard, not good. You're out Will Disley, who's your best run blocker. Eric Tomlinson needs work if we're talking about blocking. So, yeah, I saw it. P.S. Thank you, Steven. Appreciate the donation. It's infuriating. Coaching can help mask your weaknesses. That's kind of the point. And I haven't seen that because the weaknesses are glaring. We all see the weaknesses. Like, how does this keep happening? I'm sorry. I took over. I think I railroaded what you were saying. I apologize.
No, you're still getting over the emotions from yesterday's show and the frustrations. Get it out, Dan. This is what it's for. No, but that was just my point. In terms of in general, how Greg Roman, and this is maybe what infuriates me a little bit more, Dan, is because you went through 2 games with Justin Herbert injured earlier in the season, weeks 3 and 4. You knew what his limitations were then. I would have thought in this game specifically, coming off of his fresh ankle injury, and given the fact that if you know Todd Bowles, it's no secret how much he blitzes opposing quarterbacks. I would have figured that you would have schemed something that would be in a similar type of realm of how Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, or anybody else negates opposing pass rush when it's just coming at you. Snap, get the ball out quickly. Snap, quick slant route over the middle, get it out of your hands. He shouldn't be holding onto that ball for any more than 2 seconds. Yet, for 3/4 of the game, really, he has him in these drop back scenarios. And especially when you see some of the concepts that Kurt Warner highlighted, how many receivers ran the route? There was literally only 2. And you got 4 defensive backs back there. And the rest of everybody is coming after Justin.
And you got Justin hobbling with a 14-step drop, it feels like.
And nobody's blocking, which is the biggest aspect of this.
Now, look, we said this yesterday. Everyone's to blame. This isn't just coaching. This is on players as well. This is on Justin as well at times. You saw, I think it was Mitchell Schwartz who went out there and kind of talked about how some of this is on Justin from a pre-snap adjustment, calling out protections. It's not just Greg Roman, but collectively, they've got to figure this out. And from an offensive storyline perspective, going up against a Broncos team, again, tied with the Chargers for the best scoring defense in the NFL, they hunt quarterbacks. And they're knocking them over constantly. And if you don't have an adjustment from this previous game where Tampa Bay blitzed the shit out of you, this Broncos team doesn't need to. And they'll still get after you more. If Greg Roman doesn't fix this, this is going to be a bloodbath. And it shouldn't be. It doesn't have to be. I'm hoping this coaching staff collectively can respond, can adjust, can bring a game plan. Do not run away from the run game. No pun intended here, but come on. 11 carries combined last week. You got to be better than that.
You also can't find yourself down 3 scores late in the second half because that's going to kill your running game whether you like it or not.
Do you feel better? I feel like I feel worse.
I feel like you do. I don't even felt like you came with this much anger and energy last night.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it's getting closer to game time. I'm not sure how it's affecting you, but I feel like you regressed when in reality you should be feeling better.
I blame you.
Shocker.
Okay. Latest injury updates. Cam Hart not playing.
No surprise there.
Will Disley not playing. No surprise there. A couple names, reinforcements, we hope will be there. Denzel Perryman, sorely missed last month. Hayden Hurst, BPB, don't know, couldn't tell you. But they could use it, although they may have found someone in Stone Smart. So Hayden Hurst is arguably battling for a roster spot at this point. This Chargers team, they've got to flip a switch. I like what I saw from the receiving core against the Chiefs. That receiving core without Ladd McConkey stepped up. And heck, Quentin Johnston stepped up again. Ladd McConkey stepped up again last week. Josh Palmer, up until that Chiefs game, has been kind of a disappointment. And I like Josh Palmer. I have no idea what happened. I don't know if that's just opportunities. I'm not sure. From the offensive side, Jake, like, what are, I guess if I ask you or Chargers fans, what is the most important thing for this Chargers offense in order to be efficient? I don't even need to say successful, but efficient. Like, to get some minutes chewed, to get some drives sustained. What is the most important component?
I think I know. I mean, I think you already know the answer to the question that you're asking. The problem is, are the Chargers actually going to be able to do it? You have to figure out a way to get a run game going. That's number one. And you have to be able to put yourself in third and short situations. And newsflash, be able to convert a third down, which you did not do at all in the Tampa Bay game. 0 for 6 on third down. Against this defense, you cannot allow that to happen. What I would like to see, I go back to week 6 against the Denver Broncos, and a certain running back who made his debut in that game, Kamani Vidal. Remember the opening touchdown pass to him? I would like to see some more screens utilized in this game, ones that aren't brought back because of an offensive holding penalty, by the way. But I would like to see more of these concepts thrown into this game when you have a limited mobile quarterback in Justin Herbert, because you have to do something to make the defense respect you and not just bring an all-out blitz every single time. Why? Because your offensive line has proven it through 14 games that they can't withstand that. So how do you schematically come up with a game plan that's going to keep your quarterback upright, still be able to produce positive results moving down the field? I'm not worried about Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston. Those opportunities are going to come, but you have to figure out a way to be balanced as well. Keep the defense guessing. And in this type of circumstance, plays like screens, play action, things that have eluded the Chargers for the last month, they need to get those back into the calls.
Well, honestly, I don't even think I want as many play actions as we've done, because that like, it works sometimes, but it also gets Justin absolutely obliterated when it doesn't.
Sure, I'm not saying that that's every single play. I'm not
3-step, 5-step. I want the annoying as hell Tom Brady offense.
I'm simply saying mix that up, then you could take that shot. I'm not even saying that Justin Herbert should be running bootlegs or anything to that fashion, but mix it up enough to where you can take that opportunity and that shot downfield if you need to off of a play action. But you can't just have Justin Herbert sit back and shotgun and be stoic and wait and see for the open wide receiver, because that's another facet outside of Ladd McConkey with this team and this wide receivers group. They have trouble against man coverage. And you're going up against one of the best defensive backs in the league in Patrick Surtain.
Don't sleep on Riley Moss either.
It doesn't look like, I don't believe that Riley Moss isn't playing.
Oh.
However, Dan, they have another corner that is most likely going to be covering Ladd McConkey in this game. And yeah, you mentioned McMillan, who's having a really, really good season.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to do? I actually don't believe that this is going to be a situation to where, I mean, they may have, unless you're able to find success with McConkey, they literally could just play man the entire game.
Bracket McConkey.
Because they're so good at it. So how are you going to get things going?
Alan, Dan, you missed the idea from guilty as charged by one. I don't know what idea we're referencing here. Do you know what this is, Jake?
The idea, I did happen to catch it in the chat. It was, I could scroll up and find it here. Hang on. Bear with. Not that one, I'm sorry.
Live shows. Gotta love it. While you're looking for that, Jake, I'll
Gotta love it.
Every time I see Jatir Taylor covering somebody, I cringe in my eyes because he's been so bad this season. There's been a lot of big spots that Jatir Taylor has not been good in. There's no question about that.
I've got it here again. This is about utilization of Quentin Johnson. This actually came from the Guilty as Charged guys, where they were saying use Quentin more in the running back spot, but try to mix things up more with him, as they say here. Have some of those end arounds, check downs, screens. I agree with the screen aspect because I've really enjoyed watching Quentin Johnson in some of those plays that we saw, I think, early in the year. He even ran a lot of those last year when he was getting the ball on short dump offs. And it's with Quentin, your objective early with him was to get him out in space, which he can do very, very well in. Great example of that, Tampa Bay on the touchdown that he ended up scoring. I think you can use him in a lot of different facets. I think he's great when he's coming across the field. He's able to get open in those scenarios. And when he's able to catch the ball, he can create some yak opportunities after that as well. So I'm all for that at this point because anything's on the table. You got to be. Don't come up with these. I will say I don't want to see any of these 3rd and 4 Jalen Reagor end arounds because those haven't been successful. But with Quentin Johnston, you have more versatility that you can be flexible with in your offense to have more options in terms of how you can attack a defense.
We are live, Chargers fans, in our feelings, as you can hear or see by now. Nolan Pritchett, what's up, guys? Hope you're doing good. I have a peppercini London broil crock pot going. Banging.
All right.
So I'm doing good. We'll see how it feels about tomorrow. Remind me to tell you about the time I made a banging crock pot dish. Forgot to press the power button. Press the power button. Forgot to plug it in. Came home from work 10 hours later. Let's just say I had to throw it away. And I was very mad. That was a bummer. So, Nolan, hope it's plugged in. Enjoy. Jake, BHB says, it's ironic what fans hated about Joe Lombardi, the quick passing game, Greg Roman isn't doing. And that's the frustrating part is, what is Greg Roman doing? Like, we thought it was going to be balanced. He took a year off. We were banking on there being a good run game. And of course, he joins the Chargers and the Chargers can't run with Greg Roman. Like, what? That's never happened. But yeah, I think we're looking for this team to be more balanced and to protect Justin Herbert. There's a way to allow him to be Superman without making him do it without his eyes open. Like, you got to give him a chance here.
Do you remember I said it during summertime before the season even started? I came out and I said for even my own expectations to temper them just a bit because there was going to be some stumbles. There was going to be some mistakes. It's Jim Harbaugh coming back to the NFL after some time away in college. Here's his first year with all of these guys collectively together as a coaching unit. They're going to stumble. They're going to make some mistakes here. But ultimately, I had the confidence that they were going to correct it. As an offensive unit for 14 weeks, it's now gone beyond stumbling. It's happened so much now that you call it a trend. And that's what's more frustrating here in terms of whether we're talking about the offensive line, whether we're talking about the running backs in general. Again, I understand that your running game was better when you had J.K. Dobbins, but I am not going to make a personnel excuse in this circumstance because you should be able to find a way to run the ball, but your interior of your offensive line just can't open any holes for anyone right now.
I'd rather have Quentin with blockers out in front than Quentin blocking. I'll tell you that much.
Sure.
So I've seen some quarterback screens where Quentin's whiffing on some blocks and Lad's getting cooked. Other way around, when Quentin's blocked, he goes forward. A lot of folks in the chat here, like, yeah, Quentin's a beast. Get him moving. I think we know what he's good at. Get him in space, uncontested, with the ball in his hands. He'll make folks miss. Go look at the touchdown last week. That should not have been a touchdown. Quentin just made like 3 dudes miss. Push him forward for a touchdown. Now, what that looks like as a running back, I don't know. But give him some like running back-esque looks, sure. Put him out as a running back and do a running back screen. That'd be fun. Cool. Go like dual running backs. Put Kamani on one side, Quentin on the other. Throw to the flats. Sure. I'm down for being creative. Why not?
bigger picture of what I was saying also, Dan, is schematically what's being drawn up from one half to the next. We've seen examples, Kansas City, when this team can't start fast, and then all of a sudden the run game is able to get going late in the second half, but unfortunately it's just not enough. You can't play 2 quarters against the Kansas City Chiefs. You go back to the Cincinnati game, Justin Herbert is on fire, just dealing. Protection is good. Wide receivers are getting separation. He's seeing the field tremendously. And then you sputter for a majority of the third and the fourth quarter and allow Cincinnati to get back into the game until J.K. Dobbins closes the door. It's the scheme for me, Dan. You've had these mistakes that almost end up costing you games, but don't. At what point are you going to learn from them? And again, I go back to it where Sunday, everything just really came to a head because the Chargers didn't play well in all 3 facets of the game. They need to figure out a way to correct it. When it's this bad, when it becomes a trend, it's hard to get out from underneath some of these issues unless something drastically changes.
A couple of things here real quick. OBJ, yay or nay for you?
No.
Oh, I'm gay. Why not? Why not? Wouldn't hurt. Nolan asks, do you think that they try and save Herbert and let the backs run more than 15 times? Please! Please! Can we try this?
The
It
caveat
shouldn't be that
here,
hard to ask Greg Roman for this. Like, what are we doing?
the caveat here, Dan, is how many yards are those runs going for? If it's no gain or if it's 1 yard, it's really not going to help your offense out.
But at least you're going for more than 2
I get
minutes.
I get it. I totally understand.
That's
that.
helping your defense. There's a comment in here earlier about your defense being cooked because you're on the field the entire time.
Yes, and I totally understand that. But in the bigger picture of things, if you go run on first and second down and then you find yourself in 3rd and 8, you're going to find yourself in the exact same position that you found yourself in for a majority of the Bucs game or in other situations to where the Chargers are in 3rd and long and the defense is going to do what they need to do. Ultimately, I'm 100% with you. You can give them 15 touches. You need to give your quarterback a rest. But ultimately, when tooth meets nail, block somebody, create a running lane, and get some yardage on first and second down. Create more positive plays on early down so that when you're getting in a situation to where it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 3, you can open the playbook up a little bit, which doesn't put so much stress on your quarterback, especially the way that Greg Roman has been scheming certain plays on 3rd and down lately.
All right, wrapping up on the offensive side. We'll switch it over. I hate when I see this stuff. OBJ is a cancer. No. Go ask the Rams if he's a cancer. They loved and adored Odell Beckham. Like, could we just... Okay. I don't like that we'll be without Hart and Molden. Yeah, that's a big one. Molden, I think, was Molden doubtful?
Yeah.
I saw Molden at the tent last week, and then he came back right away, and I was like, oh, no, I think it was right when the Cam Hart injury happened. He came back. That's big. Elijah Molden's been one of the Swiss Army knives, one of the golden child of Joe Ortiz.
Yeah. And mind you also don't have a Louis Gilman for this game. So I would assume you're going to see another elevation from DiCaprio Boodle.
Or Marcus May. Well, safety. Safety if we're not doing Louis Gilman.
Yeah. It's going to be tough sledding out there. Jasir Taylor is going to have to fill some big shoes for this game. Christian Fulton is going to have a rebound game after allowing all 6 targets go for 6 catches against him last week. And it's going to be tough because Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton have developed a great relationship throughout this season. And they can attack. And if you have watched Bo Nix as of late, he can sling the ball. And he has a cannon. And he's not afraid to go downfield if it's wide open. And with a Chargers secondary the way it is right now, don't allow any of those opportunities.
Okay, Jake, we have 2 voicemails left, both from our friend Athir. We have an angry one, and we have a questionable one. Which would you like first?
Questionable one.
questioning something about this team.
Let's get the anger out of the way.
Okay.
Dan, Jake, this is SEO. I heard all the voicemails. I am out on these fans. We have the most stupid, pathetic fan
Whoa. But that's what he's angry at?
in the NFL. Chargers fan are fucking trash.
Athir, how are you, my baby? You need a hug? You need to take a breath?
It is absolutely embarrassment for what the fuck was been said. Because of a loss, I said before the season started, don't put expectation on this fucking team this year. Because they don't have the players that they need. They don't have the roster that they need. And then...
This is a little rich, honestly. Again, love you, Athir, but you were hyping this team up like 13 wins, blowout wins. You were hyping this team up and talking all about this. And now that the bottom's fallen off a little bit, there's a little heat in the kitchen.
I remember the Baltimore prediction, 35-14.
You want to get happy and excited when they win. But when we get our ass kicked, what do? Okay? You stop crying like a fucking bunch of bitches and then calling out all the...
Okay. Fear. That's enough. Okay.
Let's just respond to this for a second.
Whoa. Fear.
I think that as it relates to expectations for this team, there should be a lot more praise behind the expectations, considering everything that has changed over a single year. And it's more so the fact that, yes, I hear everybody, and yes, this team needs more, specifically Justin Herbert. It needs better protection, needs some help with the running back unit, definitely needs help with the receiver unit, and all of that's going to come. And I think it's from the standpoint that you take this Chargers team personnel-wise and you put it with any other coach. Does it currently have an 8-6 record? No, it doesn't. It's the fact that they started to win games in spite of their deficiencies. They started to win games that traditionally they wouldn't. Cincinnati being one, Atlanta being another. They were able to find ways to win. Now, does that completely void them of criticism? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And when you have lost 3 of your last 4 and the offensive inconsistencies that have literally been with this team all season long, especially coming after a tough divisional game against Kansas City, and you give up a 40 burger at home? I'm not going to back that up. Dan and I have shot it straight. We will praise this team when it's there, but we're not going to keep our heads in the clouds. We're still going to be real when criticism is warranted. And in this particular case, it's warranted.
Yep. Look,
it's warranted, 100%.
I understand the sentiment from Athir in being frustrated with fans for basically selling this team after 2 losses. Like that, I get a little bit. But where Athir misses me is this Chargers team at 8-4, I would say was probably over exceeding expectations a bit. At 8-6, they're probably right on track with what we expected this Chargers front office and coaching staff to be able to do with this roster. Has it looked like we expected it would look? No. Go listen to the last 30 minutes of the show. But there's reasons to be concerned. And not just because, this team should be Super Bowl. I don't think that's where most of the team's fan base is frustrated. I think it's that, generally speaking, folks see a glaring trend or trends of things that either are not working or possible things that could help fix. And it's just like that easy button is just like locked in key and they're not opening it. Like, give Justin a couple easy buttons here. And then look at the defensive side. Now we'll go to the Chargers defense versus Bo Nix and company. Bo Nix is athletic, man. Remember last game they played against him? Bo Nix surprised some of the Chargers defense a bit. Didn't know they had it in him. Chargers defense generally, go watch them against scrambling quarterbacks. Go look at Baker Mayfield last week. Oh my gosh. You got this pass rushing duo, hell, quad, that are not living up to it at all. And you can say, sure, they're every down players, and Khalil Mack still helps with the run game. And I get all of that, but they got to be game breakers. That's what they're getting paid for. Go ask Jesse Minter. That's what they're getting paid for. I will say, I'm very excited to see Jesse Minter after he got his ass kicked. Very excited.
It's only a one-off if you allow it to be a one-off. Those were his words.
Question here, Jake. Big game from Tarheeb still?
Somebody's. I would love it. Would love it.
Steven says, I'm so sick of people talking about the fan base. Even Mack was embarrassed by how they played. Totally. They're disappointed because we know this team is better than this. 100%. And honestly, I think Athir is projecting a little bit, if we're being honest and want to talk a little psychoanalyst. I think Athir is frustrated with this Chargers team, and he's projecting some of his own frustrations at everybody else. Because Athir has been so excited about this Chargers team. The Chargers fan base has been so excited because of what they looked at 8-4, in spite of the deficiencies. And then they just got trucked. And again, not just coaching, not just players, not just scheme, like everything on all three sides. So I get it. Question from Brian. Who do you want guarding Cameron Sutton, Dan? Well, honestly, I'll be peek behind the curtain. Teams in fantasy playoffs. Courtland Sutton's on my team. So who does my wallet want me to have guard him? Or who?
Well, your choices are kind of limited now. So
probably Fulton. Because of the size. Probably because of the size.
That's who's going to guard him.
You saw Tarheeb on Mike Evans last week. That didn't go too well. So it's probably going to be Fulton or Dean Leonard, honestly. That's another option. I can see Dean as well. Jake, Chargers defense got to step up, man. This front has to get after it, like you saw that Kansas City game. I think you're going to need to. I hope that I don't want to use the word hope, but given what we've seen so far, you would think that Jesse Minter's goal is to make Bo Nix look like a rookie quarterback, like he did last time they played, for the most part.
If there is one thing I've learned for watching this team since the time that Khalil Mack has been on it, you hear him after a post-game show when we're talking about a Chargers loss. Be ready for a game for him the following week. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to result in a win, but he's going to respond. I know he's going to respond. You bring up the Kansas City game. That's more of the frustrating aspect, Dan. You hit Patrick Mahomes the most that he has been hit in his entire career in a single game. Your edge players were getting to work. Your interior was able to attack him. The quad of Bosa, Mack, Tooley, and Dupree were able to get pressure. And this past week against Baker Mayfield, the offensive line, Tristan Wirfs and Graham Barton, just absolutely shut the edge players down. Like I said on the show, the best player defensively along the line was Poona Ford. He was the only one that was fending off double teams and actually getting penetration up the middle. But the edge players just seemingly disappeared. There was no pass rush for Baker Mayfield, and that's why it looked so easy. But you go from 1 week to the next to see that much disparity and inconsistency, yeah, you better be coming. So if there's one thing I have learned, Khalil Mack will be coming to play on Thursday. Make no mistake about that.
Look, this Chargers defense, as much as you want to sit here and praise them, they just got blitzed. And they put up a 40 burger. That's not good. And if you're looking ahead, and there's a comment here, Jake, saying maybe the Chargers were looking ahead for that Bucs game to the Broncos game. Maybe. I don't know. I don't care, to be honest. It's unacceptable either way. Courtland Sutton's the offense for this Broncos team. He's got more than double the next closest targets. Javonte Williams, a running back, by the way, 53 targets. Cortland Sutton's got a $113. That's almost 3 times their next leading receiver. Marvin Mims, please don't give him a 90-yard touchdown. That'd be wonderful. It's the busted plays that are going to decide this game, Jake. If you could give up those plays like you did against the Bucs, a big run of Bucky Irving, plays to, heck, it could be a scrambling Baker Mayfield. It could be Mike Evans going beast mode over the top or around the corner. You can't have that. These guys got to be communicating. They've got to be in sync. So, how would you go about, would you put Henley as a spy kind of thing and just like, do not get baited, stay on your feet, don't jump, and just stay?
No, I definitely would. You've seen how athletic Bo Nix is capable of being. And much in the same realm, obviously not to their caliber, but you've seen how the Chargers have struggled in containing Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Seemingly every team does. But Bo Nix, much like a healthy Justin Herbert, when he's able to use his legs, he has no problem getting downfield and extending drives. No problem at all. So, yeah, I would do that. I would totally use Daiyan Henley that way.
We've got about 10 minutes left here, Jake, before we get to the bold and game predictions. Chargers fans, the chat, you let us know. What are your bold and game predictions for this one? Let's have some fun. Okay. I know this is a little heated for a bit, but Jake, you have been on the caboose of this. You've talked about this being a must-win game. You talked about last week being a must-win game. This one, I think, is more for a must-win just from like a setting the table for the rest of the year for this team in the franchise, to be honest. Can they still get in with 2 wins after this and get the playoffs? Absolutely. The chances of getting the playoffs are very good regardless of what happens. And a part of me, and this is just, I don't know, silver lining optimistic Dan for a second, Jake. What if Patrick Mahomes sits out for a while? Yeah. What if the Bills get the 1 seed? 2-7, Chargers, Chiefs. We all wanted it. So if that's the worst that came, you know how many Chargers fans would be licking their chops saying, yes. I think Chargers fans would rather play Kansas City than play Baltimore or play Buffalo. Would you?
Yeah. You don't want to go up to Buffalo in that weather. Hell no. Nope. And you know that every game that you play against Kansas City is ultimately close.
Yep. Do you think Mitchell needs to mix up scheme and go heavy boxes here and there instead of getting grashed over and over?
Again, I think it was more so in terms of how he schemes for the game. I like how he schemes for the game. I like how he adapts overall from week to week. If you're using this in comparison to the Tampa Bay game, the execution just really was not there. There was mistakes all over the field, namely the Jasir Taylor one on the first drive that allowed that long touchdown. Again, we already talked about the lack thereof of pass rush throughout the game, which is, of course, going to affect every other layer of the defense down the field. So I think they just made way too many mental errors, were not able to ultimately produce what they set out to do, and they need to correct that. I think that Jesse Minter, much like Dan said, I'm intrigued to see him come back after allowing 500 yards and 40 points on the board, and think about the work that he's going to put in to scheme against a divisional opponent on Thursday Night Football.
I think you're going to see Jesse Minter all over the place on the sidelines in reactions. Watch for him camera angles. I'm calling it right now. We're going to see some fist bumps, some jumps, some chest bumps with the team. Timmy says, the truth is this team is being hobbled by the edge rushers. I wouldn't say hobbled by the edge rushers, but I
wouldn't say that either.
Ability to get to the quarterback and just letting quarterbacks dance around. Whether they need to manufacture pressure with blitzes, simulated blitzes, disguised blitzes, or these guys need to just win more one-on-ones.
That's more of the issue. Again, you go back to 2 weeks ago in Kansas City, they were doing their job.
Yep.
1 week later, it felt like nobody showed up. But I get it. But that is part of in general in terms of overall pass rush and interior defensive line. If you are able to win more often with four rushers than 5, that's a win for your defense. If you're able to get successful on your blitz packages and get after the quarterback and create pressure, that's going to help all 3 layers of the defense in general. But when you're not there and an offensive line is able to lock you up and own the line of scrimmage, it's going to be a long day, and you're going to see a lot of passes and catches the way that they were against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. So I understand the concern. Microcosm, yeah, they didn't show up last week. But this defense, for the most part, has performed well because of guys like Khalil Mack. Thule, I think, has had another good season under his belt. Joey obviously has still coming back off of the time that he missed through injury. You'd still like to see those false starts, or those encroachment penalties not be so much that he has put up over the last 3 weeks. But collectively, you just have to be better as a pass rushing unit. And last Sunday, they weren't.
Bold game predictions, Jake. We got about 5 minutes left here. Look, I think from a formula perspective, Jake, I think this is don't let the running game beat you because they don't really have one. So it shouldn't be an issue. So don't let it be an issue. Stop the run game and do not let Bo Nix scramble beat you. Everything else, I trust Jesse Minter and the secondary in the scheme to take advantage of opportunities that a rookie quarterback gives you. But if you allow Bo Nix to run or other folks to run, you are in for a long day. You're in for a long day. Stop the run. Contain Bo Nix. He will give you chances. He will give you chances. And please, for the love of God, tackle. Especially when you're the last line of defense. Push him out of bounds. Get him down. That was such a weird fluke thing that we haven't seen for a while. So, bold game predictions. I saw folks say we're going to get 80 yards rushing for the first time since JK went out. I saw 2 passing touchdowns here for a bit. Let's see. What did James say? Bold prediction. Redemption game by Herb. 2 passing red zone touchdowns and 1 rushing. Jake, bold prediction.
So your bold prediction was what? Just a mixture?
I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay. I thought that was what your bold prediction was. Good. Okay. I'll elaborate on that in a second. It's so hard to pick one. I don't even know if I want to go on the offensive or defensive side because there's just so much to correct that you're coming off of that Tampa Bay game. But ultimately, I'm going to skew this into the direction that I think I'm more confident is going to correct those mistakes. And unfortunately for Justin Herbert, I think that's the defensive side. There's been nothing to show me that this offense can play 4 quarters of football yet. And especially with the game scheme as of late of Greg Roman, I'm going to defer to the defensive side of the ball. 2 weeks ago, I said that Khalil Mack was going to have himself a game against DJ Humphries, and he had a game against Kansas City, and it was very, very good. And collectively, the pass rush of the Chargers was there. I feel bad given my bold prediction last week because it was Cam Hart, because it was a welcome sight to see him back, come off of that Kansas City game, lay that big hit, and then unfortunately suffered his own injury and the concussion, which was very scary for him. So I'm kind of, believe it or not, Dan, I'm leaning on Daiyan Henley here to have a monster game. I think getting Denzel Perryman back is honestly one of the less talked about aspects about why this team has suffered the way it has over the last month. I know that we talk about the loss of J.K. Dobbins in the run game, but Denzel Perryman's loss against the run, his absence has been sizable. I think getting him back is going to allow Daiyan to do the things that we were just talking about in terms of not only spying Bo Nix, but being able to have better coverage in the middle of the field. I think Daiyan Henley is going to have a monster game on Sunday, or tomorrow. And I also piggyback that off of, did you hear his comments after the Tampa Bay game? There's some Khalil Mack in Daiyan Henley in terms of how he approaches every game. So, Agent Zero, Ranger, he's going to have himself a game on Thursday.
Honestly, and this is one of those like head versus heart moments, Jake. And all the bold predictions I have, everything that comes to mind are not good ones.
Nope.
They're not. Maybe this is going to be the Gus game. I'm going to go Gus Edwards. Can we get back to what I want? That medieval.
It's bold. No question about it.
Yeah, this is a reality. Bold. This is bold.
That's definitely bold.
I want to see like 23 rushes for 86 yards and a touchdown. Like actually stay committed and be effective. 83 yards, 23 carries, touchdown for Gus. Game predictions. Folks are saying Broncos win 27-20. There's another one here that said Chargers win as well. Bold prediction, 2 touchdowns, 100+ yards receiving for Quentin. Chargers win 2017. Jake. Final score.
There's no way I can expect it to be more than a 10-point win. It's going to be close. It's a divisional opponent. It's not week 6 anymore. They're now leading you in the standings, and they have as much in terms of playoff implications riding on this game as you do. I don't care about Bo Nix's last week against the Indianapolis Colts. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and how that game virtually shifted after Jonathan Taylor dropped the ball before he entered the end zone. I don't care about that because I know it's going to be a different Bo Nix and a different Denver Broncos team that goes up against this Chargers team. The biggest aspect of it is how do they respond? And Dan, you could tell me that the Chargers could jump out to a 27-0 lead at halftime. I could tell you right now, I cannot say with 100% certainty that they would keep that lead to 10 by the time that the game was over. It's going to be close. So I have this as another field goal win for them. Somehow, some way, you're going to have to respond. Your back is now up against the wall. And in my opinion, a must-win game. Yes, it's not mathematically.
Derwin said it too.
You better have that type of mentality going into Thursday. So I've got the Chargers 24-21. Somehow beat the Denver Broncos. If it's all defensive points, hey, it's all defensive points, and we'll be on here once again criticizing the offense for not doing what they're doing. If they're able to put up points and then the defense allows them to come back in, we'll be criticizing that too. But ultimately, whatever it takes at this point to get a W on the win-loss column.
I said this before. This is kind of like a head versus heart thing. And the last time I went with my heart was the Ravens game, where I predicted the Ravens were going to lose. Earlier in the season, Jake, I had given this team 10 wins. And seemingly the Bucks and Bengals game were flipped. I had them winning the Bucks game, losing the Bengals game. I'm going with my head again. I'm not going with my heart. I think they lose. I think they win the next 2. But I hope I'm wrong. But I'm going with what I've seen. I'm going with reality and what I've seen. And the reality is this offense has not looked good. We can hope and be optimistic that they're going to change, that Greg Roman's going to impose his will, and it's going to be the medieval ground and pound, turn the clock. I hope that's the case. But if I had money on it, I'm not banking on it. And this feels like a 17-13 type of game where the Chargers defense isn't going to be bad. So I say they lose 17-13. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Justin runs for 55 yards, 2 touchdowns, throws for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. I hope. But And it hurts me to say this, but yeah, 17-13, I think this is a loss. Kevin and Dan, you probably also had them beating Arizona but losing to Denver. Yes. Yeah, so they're on schedule. It's going to be disappointing if they do lose, but the season isn't over. Season isn't over. Timmy says 24-10 Chargers. 24-10. I hope they're right. I don't know what this name is, but there is dueling narratives here. Sean Payton wanted the Chargers job, took the Denver's job. Y'all know what folks think about Sean Payton. Coaching's going to be huge, says Eugene. Jacob says, Broncos are beating bad teams, though. Broncos have done nothing. Brian says, Jake, good thing about short weeks and division opponents, they get weird. So maybe we can get weird and win.
Let's get weird.
Let's get weird. That should be on a bumper sticker sometimes. Jake, we went through a lot of feelings. Bold predictions, game predictions, matchups, offense, defense, coaching, stepping up, response required. Anything else? Before we get out of here.
Just figure out a way to win the damn game.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say. You're not out of the playoffs if you lose this game, but I didn't want to find myself in a position where you have to win the final 2 games of the season and possibly have to rely on some help in the process.
Well, no. See, again,
hang on.
Honest,
I know what you're going to tell me. Dolphins, Indianapolis, all that type of junk. I don't care.
I'm saying they don't need help right now. They don't need help. Currently,
I get it. You can clinch a playoff spot with a win and a loss by Miami and by Indianapolis.
Yep.
I don't want a scenario of what could possibly change in a week. I don't want it. I don't want to be in that type of position.
I get it.
Hell, I would like to be able to be in a position to where you could rest some of your starters if your playoff situation is
hands
locked.
Back behind your head. Wonderful.
Something that somebody should have done.
Don't even say it. Don't say it. We're not saying it. We're not saying it.
A couple years ago.
Shout out to Mike Williams. We're not saying it. Eugene Jake, Broncos fan, by the way, but I gave a follow because y'all are cool. Let's go, Broncos. Jake, we got one.
Appreciate
you got one. Kevin says, what Jake is saying is if you lose, you just open up more options and more percentages for other teams. Yes.
That's all it is. I want the lack of options. Close the door.
Just don't get Justin injured, says Jimmy and Eric.
Something we're all praying for.
Find a way and bolt up. Come on, Jim, says Sweet Jumps. All right, Jake, I think that's going to do it. Bolt fam, y'all have been the best. We love doing these live shows. Appreciate you tuning in. You can find us all the time on X, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. Give us a like and subscribe if you get a chance. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. You can find this gentleman to my right at Jake T. Hefner on X, myself at Dan W. Sports. If you haven't done so, join in on the chat. Call the hotline, 323-902-7586. Jake, if the Chargers win this one, we're going to do a kick-ass giveaway. I've been holding on.
This is news to
awesome
me.
Giveaway coming.
News to me. I had no idea about this.
An awesome giveaway coming if we can get this one. So, come on, Chargers, get this victory. We're all crossing fingers by any means necessary. Jim, Jesse, Greg
again,
Ryan, Joe, Justin, Khalil, Derwin, all of you, by any means necessary, get this W. But until then, appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you next time on the next Chargers Unleashed. Primetime matchup, Chargers, Broncos, tomorrow, 5:15. We'll talk about it on the next Chargers Unleashed.